Greetings, students. This is teacher Alan G. And this particular video will be serving two purposes. It will be an overview of our electronic textbook, and it will be an overview of chapter 1. So in the week 3 module, and by the way, don't spend too much time looking at dates, because this particular video is being recorded in June of 2023, but I intend to use it for fall and spring as long as it's useful. The last video I had, which was an overview of the book in chapter 1, is 2 years old. So I'm replacing a video that's 2 years old. I think this video and my perceptions and what I share will be far more beneficial because I'm 2 years more mature now in terms of understanding the book. So don't focus too much on the dates, but the week 3 module is where we introduce using the ebook. It's entitled Fundamental Skills. And in this module, I have a page called our ebook and chapter 1 overview video. So I'm going to go to that page. Now I'm updating that page, obviously, and every semester it will be updated slightly. So again, the general information is what I'm pointing out now. So the electronic textbook you can download as an entire PDF document, and you should have it on your computer. However, know that every assignment I give you where I assign something from the book, I will include a portion of that textbook. I'm going to cut out the section of the textbook that applies to the lesson. And sometimes I put in meaningful notes on that excerpt, that section that I create for the assignment. So I guess what I'm saying is for the assignments, you want to make sure that you use or at least refer to the steps that I provide you on the assignment page and that particular section of the ebook. However, at other times, you're just going to want to reference the ebook as an entire document. You might want to look something up. You might want to flip through things. So you should download it as a secondary resource for yourself. Here's a link if you haven't done it already. The first project that we're doing from the book is from chapter 1. It will be the main project in chapter 1. It's called Merchandise City Sales Data. And throughout this course, when I refer to the electronic textbook, I'm going to be referring to the textbook page numbers. And those are slightly different than the PDF numbering. And I'll show you that in a few moments. So I'll be saying blue page 22 or blue page 17, and that will make sense to you in a few moments. The textbook, especially during during each of the chapters, we have this step-by-step exercise where they tell you every little thing you need to do. They first explain the concept to you, the Excel concept, and then they tell you what they want you to do. They introduce a new concept, explain it to you, then they tell you what you want to do. It's a very good system. Many textbook publishers use it, and they don't assume that you have any knowledge of Excel to begin with. So this is a great place to start. Now, here's the motivating thing, I hope, for most of you. It doesn't matter if you are a seasoned Excel user with a lot of experience, or if you're brand new, you will learn something from chapter 1. And the reason is this: most of us learn things not in a comprehensive way. Oftentimes we're self-taught, we're taught by friends, family, co-workers, and oftentimes we don't have a good foundation, right? We might have a good foundation in some areas, and then we're missing some important things, and then we have the good foundation in other areas. It's uneven. It's not comprehensive and complete. And so for those of you that are more advanced, you're going to look to fill in those little gaps, those things that you never learned. Oh, I never knew the name of that. I never knew that was possible. That's another way of doing the same thing. Okay. For those of you that are brand new, I don't want you to get overwhelmed, but learn one basic way to do the things they're showing you to do, right? The more advanced students can pick up methods 2, 3, and 4 for doing something, but the brand new students just need to learn the one tried and true method for doing something, and not get lost in the details. Okay, so there's something for everyone here. The textbook has lots of graphics and explanations. So there's not that many steps, and the steps that they do have are very, very detailed. So you might see 10 steps, but really doing those 10 steps takes you 1 minute, you know. So I don't want you to think that this chapter 1 is, you know, really extensive. Now, for those of you that are brand new to Excel, you're going to have to read and follow the steps and the instructions more carefully, and it will take you more time. But this is an opportunity for you to learn Excel, and it's very, very important. Nearly every job that's involved with computers at all, and nearly all jobs are involved with computers or connected to computers, requires you to use Excel, or you can benefit by learning Excel. Okay, so yeah, you can just do the bare minimum and try to do the project and hope to get a certificate or something like that, or you can take this opportunity as one to learn a very important vocational skill that will help you for the rest of your working life. And it will not only help you with Excel, but there are transferable skills that will apply to Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and then, you know, other programs as well. Now, again, ignore the dates. I haven't updated that yet. Now, this video is not going to be a step-by-step demonstration of me doing the steps. I'm just going to give you an overview of the textbook so that you understand how it's set up and, you know, what the author's intentions are. And then number 2, I'm going to give you a overview of chapter 1, sharing what to focus on and what to remember and what's important and what's really not that important. Okay. There's so many things that life presents to you. It's important for you to know the things that are okay to ignore and the things that you need to focus on. Same thing with any computer program that you're trying to learn. Oftentimes, textbook authors will explain everything that's possible, or, you know, nearly everything that's possible with a certain program. But not everything that's possible is meaningful or important. Okay. So I am going to share with you along the way, when we look at the book, I'll be sharing with you my perspective as someone who has used Excel for 30 years and someone who's taught Excel for 25 years. And I think I'll be able to pull out some meaningful ideas for you. Okay, so I think we need to jump over to the book. I already downloaded it. And this is the first page. I think what I want to show you is when I open mine up, it opens up in my, looks like Google Chrome. It doesn't matter what browser you use. On my computer, Google Chrome is my default browser. But you can open it in Mozilla, Firefox, or Microsoft Edge, Safari, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just a PDF. Now, here's what I was saying about the page numbering. The page numbers you see at the very top in the PDF Google Chrome program area are not the page numbers of the book. So it says 387, right? Beginning Excel. So as I scroll down past this title page, there's another title page with the authors. And then there's copyright page. And then we get to the table of contents. Then there's an introduction. So even when I get to the introduction, they're using Roman numerals for the page numbers. So when I get to chapter 1, the first page, that is what the textbook authors call page 1. So that's, I would refer to it, just so students don't get confused, as blue page 1. And so that's what I mean by calling pages blue. Now, if you look at the PDF numbering, it shows 9. That's because there are those blank pages and the title pages, but this is blue page 1 of the book. All right, so we got that out of the way. The other thing to notice is on some pages, it will be in the bottom center of the page. That's where you see the page number. On other pages, it will be in the top left or the top right. Okay, getting back to the table of contents, we want an overview of this book so we know the journey, okay? So if you really want to be without stress or anxiety and you're going on a journey, the best way to deal with that is to be prepared, to know the beginning point, the end point, and all the stops along the way and the path that you're going to take. So let's look at the table of contents, which represents the path that the authors are taking us through. So first thing I want to point out, excuse me, is chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 chapters in this book. Okay, so already you've learned something. Your brain is creating an organization, an organizational understanding, a structure for the information that's going to come from this book. I just gave you something that your brain can work with. Now you have a file cabinet in your brain with 6 sections. Okay, what are these 6 sections? Fundamental skills? Well, that makes sense for the beginning chapter, right? Mathematical computations for chapter 2. They get right into it, right? Excel, one of the most important benefits or uses for Excel is the fact that you can perform calculations. So they begin to deal with that in chapter 2, which is fantastic. Chapter 3, they get into it a little bit more, formulas, functions, and then certain kinds of functions, logical and lookup functions. So I'll tell you something else that you can learn right now. When it comes to calculations or formulas with Excel, there are 2 kinds. There is something that I refer to as a manual calculation or just a generic formula. And then there's something called a function, and these are 2 different kinds of formulas, okay? So that's something to be aware of. Chapter 4 deals with presenting data with charts, okay? Now you may have heard of these referred to as graphs. These are visual graphic representations of numerical information. Very, very useful. They turn numbers into pictures. So that's dealt with in chapter 4. Chapter 5 is tables. Tables are a special tool in Excel. Some of you will say, well, wait a minute now, a basic Excel spreadsheet is a table, isn't it? Well, yes, in a generic sense, a basic Excel spreadsheet is like a table. It has columns and it has rows, and we usually refer to this generically as a table. However, there is also a special tool, an object in Excel called a table. So that's something else that's something that I'll tell you what, there's probably a lot of advanced Excel users out there. By advanced, I mean they think they're advanced because they use it every day and they do calculations. But there's a lot of those kinds of users out there that don't understand the difference, that don't know that there's a difference between an Excel spreadsheet and an Excel table. I'm telling you there is, and evidence of that will be explored in chapter 5. Is it important for you to know about this tool called tables? I think it's a little bit more intermediate to advanced to know about tables. Most people only know about normal ranges of spreadsheet data, and that's how most people use Excel. But tables are super powerful. That's why they come later in the book. They're not a foundational aspect of Excel at all. Okay, and then multiple sheet files. Well, this is where you get to learn about the power of Excel in terms of connecting sheets, working with information on different sheets, and there's a lot of time-saving options here. This also is a little bit more advanced. Most people don't know how to deal with multiple Excel files effectively. They won't. Most people don't know the things taught in that chapter. Okay, so I would say 5 and 6 are somewhat, if you had to just focus on the meat, the foundation of Excel, it would be 1 through 4, chapters 1 through 4. 5 and 6 are very, very good, but they take you a little bit higher level. Okay, so now I think I only just want to focus in on chapter 1 now, right? Because in the coming weeks, I think each module, I already have an overview for each chapter. So I don't intend to remake all those videos, at least not at this time. It's very time consuming to do this. But I think this video will be very useful for you because what I just told you in 10 minutes or so is, trust me, is something that many Excel users, the majority of Excel users picking up this book would no way be able to understand or figure out the things I told you in the last 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. You might wonder, how do I know that? How can I say that? Well, because I've dealt with Excel users in business outside of school and in school, both students that are young in their 20s or 18, 20s, and also students that are working all the way up in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And I've dealt with many of these people over the last 3 decades. And I know the things they're surprised by. And I know the things, I have a pretty good feel for what students understand. And when it comes to Excel, for most people that use Excel on a daily basis at work, it's really for very a very basic way. Most people don't get to advanced, okay? Now, I think we probably have some advanced students in this class, so I don't want to sell anyone short. I know some of you have some great skills in Excel. Okay, so let's take a look at these parts of chapter 1. In fact, I want to compare them to chapter 2. The reason why I want to look at the parts of each chapter and compare them is just to show you the consistency in the pattern. So anytime you read a book or try to understand a book, you want to see the structure, try to understand the structure of it. What did the author have in mind? Well, I'm going to explain to you what the author had in mind and what the structure is. So what you see here, what I'm putting a box around, those first 4 parts. So there's chapter 1.1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's 5 and 6. But chapters, parts 1 through 4 are all part of the step-by-step. They're all part of the step-by-step project. Okay, and in chapter 2, I think this probably won't come as a surprise to you. Guess what? Chapter 2, parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all part of the step-by-step project. Okay, so I abbreviated there. Now, notice what the last So each one of those sections, those first four sections of each chapter, and you can look at the other chapters in the book, and I think with the exception of one, they're all set up like this. Okay, so if you understand this structure, you'll understand the other ones. Notice what the last part of each one is. It is this preparing to print here, and then here it's called printing. Oh, that's interesting. So you're going to be creating a project, and guess what you do at the very end of the project? The author is going to show you how to prepare it for printing, or create or prepare it for being created, modified into a PDF, right? In other words, that last section deals with setup, margins, landscape or portrait, oftentimes headers and footers, these kinds of things. The other parts of the chapter project, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and then also 1, 2, and 3 in chapter 2, that's just the progressive building of the project, okay? So the other thing I want to point out is after that main project called well, I refer to it as a step-by-step project, there's two other exercises. One is called chapter practice. Okay, so you see that is in chapter 1, and then there's also a chapter practice in chapter 2. I think you'll see a chapter practice in every chapter. So this is less detailed project instructions for project. Put that in blue. Okay. So the chapter practice represents another project, but less detailed instructions. Why? Because they're going to have you repeat a lot of the same skills and use a lot of the same concepts. So if you forget something, how to do something, and you're in chapter practice, then you go back to the step-by-step where they introduced those concepts and skills, okay? Scored assessment, I think some of you have already figured out what that is. Let me go ahead and use a different color here. Scored assessment, that is not a different color. Here we go, that's a different color. Scored assessment is yet a third project. So I will say third project, even less detail. Tell you what, I'm going to stretch it out right there. So the scored assessment is taking you a step further where you're going to be doing the same things. And the book wants you and expects you to use the same techniques that they've been teaching you. But now the scored assessment has even less instructions and details. In fact, I don't even think they have any images, very few images. Okay. And so in this course, and by the way, you see though that same additional project here in chapter 2. It's not called assessment there, it's called scored. So, and I think in some of the later chapters, there'll be 3 of these additional projects. The important thing is you have the main step-by-step project that I've outlined in red. That's in every chapter. That's what we're going to be doing. After we finish all 6 main projects, then we'll go back and do some of the scored and oh, you know what? It is the same. They just typed in a different name. This is called scored assessment. This is called chapter scored. It's the same idea. They just, for some reason, they used a different name there. But the point is, the scored assessment and the chapter practice are additional projects that we will not do right away. There's only one chapter where I have you do the scored, I'm sorry, the chapter practice right away. And that's the one that involves formulas. And that is chapter 3. Okay, so I'll have you do that one right after the step-by-step. And the reason is formulas are so critical that you really need to get immediate practice on that. Okay, so that's how the book is laid out. Every chapter is like that. In fact, let me just go ahead and scroll down. We'll look at chapters 4, 5, and 6. And you can kind of get an idea how this is consistent, right? So you have your 1 through 4, including a print chapter or a page setup chapter. This one only has a 1 through 3. I think that's the one that's different from all the others. And then after that step-by-step, then you have the chapter practice, the scored assessment. Chapter practice, scored assessment. Okay, so now you get the idea of how the book is set up. Let's focus in on the first step-by-step project. So this is going to be the week one project. I'm going to go ahead and I guess what I'll do is I'll just scroll down. Maybe there'll be something I need to point out as I scroll down. I was going to click on the link. I was going to click on the link for chapter 1. Okay, you can see this is one of the benefits of a digital textbook. You can just click on where you want to go. You don't have to flip pages to get there. But I'm going to scroll down and you can read that introduction. Here's chapter 1, the beginning of chapter 1. And I think I will look at that. It is very important that you read introductions, okay? Because it's a summary of what the author thinks is important. It's also a summary of what the book or in this case, the chapter is all about. Microsoft Excel is a tool that can be used in virtually all careers. It's valuable for both professional and personal purposes. This chapter introduces the fundamental skills necessary to get you started using Excel. Yeah, okay, I agree with that. I think it's a good chapter. And so you always want to pay attention also, particularly with scholastic instructional textbooks, to the learning objectives. Okay, these are the things the textbook author intends to teach in this chapter. This is what they're focusing on. If these things aren't explained well in this chapter, the textbook author has failed, right? If you're trying to learn something and it's not in this list of objectives, then it's probably not in this chapter, okay? So it's useful to spend time looking at table of contents, summaries, and the list of objectives. So let's see what's important here. Let's see if I agree with what they say is important. Excel they discuss the value of using Excel to make decisions. Okay, that's true. Learn how to start Excel. Okay, some of you know how to do that. Become familiar with the Excel workbook. This might be new for some of you. An Excel file, a project, where you have a standalone file on your computer, you open up the project, you close it, you save it. It's known as a workbook. That workbook, that Excel workbook, can have many pages or worksheets. So it can have many sections within it. Understand how to navigate worksheets. Okay, I just explained that briefly, obviously. Examine the Excel ribbon. This is where if you have some knowledge of Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, then and even Publisher or Access, then you are going to be already a little bit ahead, okay? Because the Excel ribbon is the tool area at the top of the screen, and 50% of it is very similar to Microsoft Word. And the way it works is exactly the way Microsoft Word's ribbon works. Examine the right-click menu options. When it comes to the right-click on your mouse, now for those of you using Macintosh, you're going to see that this textbook does have instructions for how to adapt some of these steps for the Macintosh computer. Anyway, getting back to the regular Windows computer, most of you are using Windows computers. When you use the right mouse button in certain places, certain options become available. Now, these are not peculiar to Excel. Every Windows program has right-click options, but you need to learn the right-click options that are available with Excel. Learn how to save a workbook. In other words, learn how to save an Excel file, an Excel project. Examine the status bar. Okay, well, the status bar is the lowest part of the Excel window. It's on the very bottom, so they'll show us some important things in the status bar area. Become familiar with the features of the Excel help window. Well, I would say that you can try to use Microsoft's Excel help window, but you might be better off just searching for help on the internet. Try the help in Excel to see if that answers your question. If not, there's just a ton of tutorials and helpful information about Excel just by searching on Google. Okay, so now let's scroll down. We looked at the objectives. We know where the author is taking us in this first chapter. Let's see what this first chapter. I'm sorry. These are the objectives for the for 1.1. Okay, remember there's 1.1, 0.2, 3, and 4. So for this first section, those are the objectives. Microsoft Office contains a variety of tools. Okay, that paragraph doesn't tell us anything that I didn't just read a few minutes ago. Making decisions with Excel. So this is the first objective, right? Okay, I don't think I want to read anything more, or I'll read very little. I think I now want to just scroll through and point out things, because already this video is around 30 minutes, I think, I'm guessing. And I don't want it to be too long. I want it to be useful, but not extensively long. So here on blue page 3 is an image of the final project for chapter 1. This is what yours should look like. Now, some of you might be tempted to just go to Excel and try to make it. However, I will be removing points if you are missing things. Number 2, I don't think you should take that approach. Why did you take this class? Maybe you just want to get a certificate. Maybe you just want a pat on the back that you know Excel. Well, I don't think those are great reasons. If you just want a certificate, go buy Photoshop and make yourself a certificate, okay? That's not, obviously I'm joking. That's not really an honest thing to do, right? Why did you take the class? Are you here to learn Excel? Then go through the steps, make the project. Even if you think you know how to do it, maybe they're going to show you a different way, right? And if you do know how to do it, then you can just scan the steps and, oh, I understand that, I know how to do that. And so you can work more quickly. For those of you that are brand new and you are here to learn Excel, then you'll want to read more carefully the steps. But this is an image of the final project. I'm going to point out some things that students miss right now. Notice that this is wrapped, average is over price. Notice that the text in the, let me use a different color. The text in the title area of the spreadsheet is bold, larger text, and it's italicized, and it's wrapped on 2 lines. All of these things you need to know how to do. Wrapping text, changing font in certain areas. And so I'll be removing points if you're missing things like that. Now, notice that there are dollar signs down these columns here, and the dollar sign is not very close to the number. So there's two ways to make money. There's two ways to make numbers look like money. One is called currency style. The other is called accounting style. I'm not going to tell you what style that is. I want you to be intrigued and remember it when you come across it. If I tell you everything, that gives your brain nothing to discover. And the brain likes to discover things. And the brain remembers things that it discovers. Okay. Like a puzzle, right? It's more fun to put the puzzle together yourself than to watch someone else do it, right? So you can think of it that way. Let me see if there's anything else I need to, another significant thing, and it's not very clear from this image, but the outside border is thicker than the interior lines. Okay, and it's not real obvious from this picture, but the textbook has you do that. I'm just going to move on. I pointed out some common mistakes. Throughout this book, if you have an Excel on your Macintosh, you're going to be watching for the Apple symbol, because at certain places where the steps differ from the Windows Excel as compared to the Macintosh or the Apple Excel, then the textbook tells you what the steps are for the Macintosh computer. But otherwise, the basic steps are all presented as if you have a Windows PC computer. So the Macintosh people, which we may have a few in this class, you'll have to pay attention to the Apple symbol. Okay, good diagram where they identify some things for you. Okay, so the other thing in the step-by-step sections, lots of diagrams. You might be tempted to just pass over them without looking at them. Take the time to look at them. Okay, so diagrams, illustrations. Here's a section on navigating worksheets. Remember, that's one of our objectives. I'm not sure what number objective that is. That's one of our objectives, though. We already looked at the objectives. So as a traveler on a journey through chapter 1, I feel comfortable. I'm at one of the checkpoints. I hope this method that I'm emphasizing is something that some of you can employ in your other classes. It will serve you for the rest of your life. Okay, so lots of diagrams and explanations. Here's some steps. Okay, move the pointer to cell A1. Click and hold the left mouse button. You're going to need to pay attention when they say left or right, when they say double click, when they say click and hold. Those are the kinds of things that beginning students oftentimes miss, okay? So go slowly. Do a little bit every day. This is the kind of project where you can do a little bit every day and save your changes. Just make a note of what step you leave off on, you know. All right, at certain times, there's going to be these informational boxes. Here's this blue shaded box. It's called keyboard shortcuts. You can look at that information. It's not part of the project directly. It's like extra information. So some of the advanced students will maybe want to pay more attention to that. Some of the beginning students might want to, not necessarily worry about the extra information. Now, here's something that Mac users might want to notice, right? It's got a little apple there. Okay, the Excel ribbon is introduced. The ribbon is that toolbar up along the top, the tool area up along the top of the screen. Those of you familiar with Word and PowerPoint and Publisher and Access and even Outlook, you're familiar with the ribbon. Now, I will say something instructional about this. They do give you a diagram here, or a table rather, of all of the ribbon tabs. There may be one that's missing. In fact, I think it's there. It's called Draw. There's Developer, but you may not have Developer. Okay, so don't worry about Draw and Developer, because we don't use the Draw ribbon in this book, and nor do we use the Developer ribbon. Now, As for the others, let me just focus on the others then, right? These are the main ribbons that Excel has had for years. And they give you a description of each one. And certain ribbons have certain purposes, and some are more important than others. File is not a place with any tools for working with your file. That's a good way to think of the file tab. It's not really a ribbon area. It's called the refers to something called the backstage view. And this is where you can do a save as, print, export. It's more global changes that affect your project, your entire project. It's not where you go to change font or anything like that, okay? So in all the Microsoft programs, that's true. All the other tabs, though, are the standard tabs. So I'll tell you what, I'm gonna put a green box around all the other ones because these are the standard ribbon tabs. Now, of these, which ones do you really need to focus on or know? A beginning to intermediate user, even an advanced user, if you're doing a beginning to intermediate or even a slightly advanced project, you should be on the home ribbon. I don't know if I can put a number in there, you know, something like 85% of the time. Wow, that's like almost all the time. How about the insert ribbon? Maybe 5%. Now, I already covered this information in the week 1 module, I think. I think it was the week 1 module, maybe week 2. So some of you already know this, but my point in bringing it up here is here's where they're explaining it. And even though the textbook seems to explain each ribbon tab as being equally important, they're not. They are not. And if you accept that truth, that they're not equally important, and you take my advice, you will go far, young child. Okay, I'm joking, right? Speaking like a Jedi in Star Wars. Young Jedi, you will go far. Honestly, the home ribbon, if you use the home ribbon in combination with keyboard shortcuts and other shortcuts, right-click menu, okay? You don't need to really change ribbons very much. Insert and page layout are super important. Now, well, compared to the home ribbon, they're not as important, but you use those, you know, at least page layout at the end of your project, it might be a place you go to make some changes. Honestly, they're not that significant. What about formulas? No, I don't think that's important. Unless you're in an advanced project, you don't need to go to the formulas tab. Now, for some of you, that's going to be very surprising. Data, again, you know what? I should put a 2 there, but because there are some other tools there that are useful. Review, I'm going to put a 2 there. View, I'll put a 2. Help, I'm going to put I'll put a 1. I was going to put a 0 there, but now let me add this up. 5, I'm sorry, 10, 14, 17. I'm over 100%. So anyway, but you get the idea. This is relative importance of these areas. For some of you, that's going to come, that will be very uplifting and freeing for you, because what it teaches you is there's lots of buttons on the screen, but I really don't need to know them all. And you do not need to know them all. Why does Excel put all these buttons there? Why does Microsoft put all the buttons there? Various reasons. One of them is marketing, right? The more colors, buttons, more things you have, the more bells and whistles you have, the more value that product seems to have, right? And then another reason, which is more legitimate, is they give people different ways of doing things. But my argument is using the ribbons to do things is not a very efficient way, because you have to change ribbons, right? That's going to take you away from the home ribbon, and you know, find that button. Is there another way to do that same thing without changing ribbons? I think so. So keep all of that in mind. The book likes you to change ribbons. The book, I don't think the authors are experts in Excel. They're just teachers like me. There's 6 of them, I think. And, I think they created a great book here, but it's by no means the book I would create. And it's by no means um, the best way to use Excel, the way they demonstrate it. It is probably one of the best textbooks I've found on Excel. Okay. And what you have to understand is it shows you lots of ways of doing things. I think that's the way you have to look at this textbook. Okay, you can customize the Excel ribbon. I don't recommend that you do it. Just know that it can be done and go through the steps if they have you do it, but that's not a worthwhile thing to learn, especially for a new student. Once again, you know how to understand these blue boxes, the keyboard shortcuts. Quick access toolbar. It's worth knowing about. You may already know about it from Microsoft Word. Right-click menu. You may already understand the right-click menu from other Windows programs. Lots of diagrams. Here they explain the File tab. The File tab is not special for Excel. Word, PowerPoint, Access, and Publisher, and Outlook, they all have File tabs. So if you understand the concept of the File tab, the only thing you need to understand here is any special tools that Excel may have on the File tab. So those of you with experience in the other Microsoft programs, obviously are a step ahead. So notice the diagrams, read the diagram explanations. Let's see what this is. Oh, this is an options area. Some of you may not be aware of this, even some of you that are more advanced, but in all the Microsoft Office programs, there is an options area where you can create the default settings for lots of things related to how your program works and how the document behaves or the spreadsheet behaves. But again, that's not necessary. It's not critical. It's something that the more advanced users should know about. Here's an image from Mac. And the reason why is there's a little apple there. So those of you that are using Macs, that's an example of their explanation. If you understand the concept of save as, then saving workbooks, this section should be fine for you. But the problem is, I'm going to guess that 9 out of 10 of you, possibly 49 out of 50 of you, don't properly understand what save as is. I'll just tell you right now what it is, because I don't even know that the authors of this book understand it or explain it properly. Save as is for making a duplicate. It's for making a copy of a project. That's what it's for. It's not for changing the name of something. People use it for that. It's not for changing the location of something. People use it for that. It's for making a duplicate of something. Okay, very, very useful. What happens when you save a project for the first time? Do you use save as? No, you use save. Save as is for making duplicates. Okay, but anyway, some of you won't get that. That will take some time for you to think through. Saving workbooks. Okay, so that's this section. Oh, new colored box. So there's this burgundy box called Skill Refresher. So this seems to be included at certain times in the chapter when they want to present to you a streamlined step-by-step review of the steps for how to do something. So that might be useful for some of you. In this case, they're streamlining the steps to save as. Status bar, that's one of the objectives. The status bar, they show you how to customize the status bar. I don't recommend it. I don't think it's important in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Access to customize your status bar. It's definitely not important for new students. However, they're showing you it. Go through the steps, do it, and you'll learn something. And then when you need it later, it will be something that's familiar to you, okay? So I'm not saying that it's worthless. I'm just saying it's not important. It's definitely not critical. So they show you how to customize. Unfortunately, they don't show you the most important thing about the status bar. Maybe they'll show you later. Okay, Excel help. I already told you I didn't care for Microsoft's help, but it's worth trying, especially if you don't really want to go on Google and search for a result. So they show you how to do that. Okay, key takeaways. That's a different colored box, right? We saw blue, burgundy, and now green. The key takeaway seems to be at the end of the section. They explain the important points that you should have learned during that section. Now, some of you are thinking, wow, he's going through chapter 1, but he's only on 1.2. There's also 1.3 and 1.4. Okay, so for these next parts, I'm not going to go page by page. I'm just going to look at the objectives. Okay, so I think you can see what I'm saying, what I'm doing here. I started with the whole book and gave you a summary of that. Then I explained the chapters, how they're broken out. Now then I focused just on one chapter. Now we're focusing on each section within the step-by-step section, okay? But I'll pick up speed here. The learning objectives for entering, editing, and managing data. I'm just going to see if there's anything useful I can say about each of these things. Understand how to enter data into a worksheet. Obviously, that's important. Oftentimes when students tell me that they know how to use Excel or they use it, that's all they do. They just enter data into a worksheet. Someone else at work may have created the worksheet and they just enter data into it. And oftentimes they want to take a class to learn how to make the sheet themselves and put in the formulas themselves. So that's an important part of Excel, but it's a very basic part. Editing data, well, that's pretty easy, but it's a little bit more tricky than just entering it, right? Autofill. Oftentimes, this is one of the most exciting features in Excel for students because it's a huge time saver. Understand how to delete data from a worksheet and use the undo command. Well, deleting, there is a slight trick or something to be careful of when you delete information from Excel. So I'll just point out that you just don't hit the delete key or the backspace key. There's something special there to watch for. There's also the possibility that you can delete an entire column or an entire row or even an entire cell. So there's deleting the contents of a cell or a column or a row, and then there's deleting the actual cell, column or row. So pay attention to that. The undo command is the same, is pretty much the same in all the programs, all the Microsoft programs. Understand how to hide columns and rows in a worksheet. Okay, here's where I say, not a good idea. It's good to know that this exists, this option, but I don't recommend that you hide anything. There's very little reason to do so. And the problem with hiding something is if you don't know that it's hidden, guess what? It's lost. It could just as well be lost or never. It could be something that you never did, right? You never completed. Don't hide things, right? Unless there's a specific reason to do so. And in Excel, there's very little reason to ever hide anything. So I don't recommend that at all. Oh, I put that in the wrong spot. So that's right there. So what's this other one that I skipped? Examine how to adjust column widths. Very important, adjusting column widths. Row heights, no, not important. Okay, so column widths is one thing, row heights is another. Row heights, you don't have to worry about row heights 99 out of 100 times. And the beginning student basically never has to worry about row heights. Row heights are controlled for you by your font size. If you find yourself playing with row heights, when I see students doing that, or even just coworkers or whatever, it tells me that they don't really know what they're doing. You should pretty much never be messing with row heights. They're automatically controlled by font size. Now, is there ever a time to change the row height? Yes, of course, but it's very rare. Column widths, all the time. You're going to be changing them. You really need to know that. Okay, number 6. Oh, I already said that hiding was something we didn't want to do. Number 7, how to insert columns and rows. Oh, that's very important. So you need to add new rows and columns in the midst of a spreadsheet, in the midst of a list. You need a new column here, new row there. Absolutely. Deleting columns and rows. Yeah. You have an existing spreadsheet. You've got 2 columns for the month of September. One of them's a mistake. You want to remove it. Yeah, you need to delete that column, not clear it. You're not going to use your delete key. That will only clear the cells of that column. You need to delete the column. So they'll show you how to do that when you get there. Learn how to move data to different locations. Oh, that's very important. So most of what they're going to show you here is just very important. Okay, a couple things aren't. Now, I'm not going to look at every page in this section because you already know, I already explained the basic layout when we looked at 1.1. So I'm just going to scroll down to 1.3. Okay, so as I was scrolling, I was looking at those key topics that we discussed that we saw in the objectives. And then also I noticed here as I'm scrolling, I got to a burgundy section, then a green one that says key takeaways. That reminded me that it's probably time for the next section, which it is. Okay, so let's look at formatting and data analysis. Well, formatting, you guys already understand quite a bit of that. That mainly has to do with making the text look different, right? So I think you're going to enjoy that. Data analysis sounds complicated, but it's not. So the first objective in this section in 1.3 is using formatting techniques as introduced in the Excel spreadsheet guidelines to enhance the appearance. Okay, that's very important. Understand how to align data. By the way, some of you already know how to do a lot of those things because it's very similar. At least the general concepts are very similar to how you format things in Word, in PowerPoint. There are some differences with Excel, and it has to do with everything is broken up into little rectangles called cells. So there are some differences when you format because of that. But other than that, it's mostly the same. Aligning data, yeah. In Word, that's important. PowerPoint, you want things to be aligned properly. That's important in Excel. Entering multiple lines of text in a cell location. Now, I pointed this out when we looked at the image of the finished project for chapter 1. I said, some students don't put the title on 2 lines like it's shown here. Well, guess what? I think at this point is when they're going to explain to you how to do that. Understand how to add borders. When we were looking at that picture of the finished project, I told you that the outside borders were thicker than the inside borders. So pay attention to that when you look at the border, adding borders. Examine how to use AutoSum. Oh, this is the other tool that students love, AutoSum. You're going to love it. Use cut, copy, and paste to manipulate the data, move it around. Now, that's not an Excel tool, cut, copy, and paste. Every Windows program, has the option to cut, copy, and paste, but there may be some slight differences as to how to do this in Excel. Very slight differences. The basic concept is the same. Understand how to move, rename, insert, and delete worksheet tabs. So I explained to you at the beginning that your entire Excel file is called a workbook, but within that file, you can have different sheet tabs, different sections that are all part of the same project. And those sheet tabs can be named things like January, February, March, April, May, June, July, something like that. You can move those tabs, rename them, delete them, color them. So that's an important section. So this this entire section is important. Now, I'm going to do what I haven't done in the last few moments, and that is to pause to show you how your project will be looking at this time, right? Because as I scroll here, you see all these steps. These are steps that you're following. Every numbered step, here you're following. But look, when you get to this step, what is it? Blue page 55, and it's step 13 here. They show you an image. And you can see that the project is similar to what I showed you earlier, but it's not complete yet. So they're showing you some detailed things that they want you to do. Okay, so throughout this whole section, you're building this project step by step, and they're explaining every little step to you. Okay, so let's go down to the next section so I can end the video, because I think I've explained most of the, now you can see that project is coming along very nicely. It's almost done. I don't see the items on the bottom, but most of the rest of it looks pretty good. There's another image. So every time you make significant changes, they show you how your project should look. Those of you that are careful and conscientious will compare your project to the one in the book. Now, some of you will think, wow, this takes a long time to do this. Yeah. Maybe it will take you 3 hours. I don't know. Break it up into different days. Anything worth doing is not going to be something that you can go to a drive-in or a takeout counter and obtain in 5 minutes, right? There's a reason that companies want employees that know how to use Excel, because it's important, and a lot of office workers don't know how to use Excel beyond the basics. So why not learn? Why not be the office specialist in Excel, right? Let me just take a quick moment to tell you what happened with me. When I started working with Excel, it was 30 years ago. I was working for an insurance agency, and I didn't know anything about it. It was my first exposure to it. And I didn't know anything about Word, and I didn't know anything about the insurance software we were using. However, I seemed to like it, I enjoyed it, and I seemed to learn it fairly quickly. So that was important. And then within a short time, 6 months, a year, I was teaching the other employees. I was showing them how to do things, okay? Guess what? That made me very valuable to them. They wanted to keep me because I could do my own work, but they also wanted to keep me because I could help other people do their work. Why not be that person at your job, right? Okay, so I'm going to, it looks like it's getting closer to this thing being done. Okay, key takeaways, right? That's the end of that section. Here's the last one called printing. Now, some of you are going to see printing and say, oh, I don't have to do it because we're not going to print. This is all digital. I'm going to submit it online. Well, don't let the title printing confuse you. What they really mean is end of project, page setup, page layout options. It's not really about printing. It's definitely not about printing for us. Let's look at these objectives. Use page layout to prepare a worksheet for printing. Now, for those of you that have done this in Word or PowerPoint, you're going to be somewhat familiar with the page layout tab and the print preview tab, or I'm sorry, the print preview area, where you can do many of the same things that you can do on the page layout tab. This is where you can change the margins, the page orientation, put in headers and footers, okay? In fact, second one talks about headers and footers, and then the third one says examine how to print, okay? So you do need to go through these sections. Now, do I want you to print it? Well, no, you can print it if you want. What I want you to submit to me is the Excel file itself, the project itself. Just like you did in week 1 and just like you did in week 2. I want the actual Excel file. That way I can open it up and look at it and see how you did. And I can help you if you had any difficulty that way. So, well, I think I'm done looking at this, but let me just go ahead and scroll through page setup. So they talk about margins. Here's a large table where they explain a lot of the different options. I'm going to make a couple of points about this. Margins, super important. I think in every chapter, orientation, pay attention to, super important. Size, for the most part, no. Because most people work with 8.5 by 11-inch paper, standard letter size paper. Most offices, no, most businesses, this is the size of the standard PDF. So that's not really a critical thing to know about. I mean, it's something interesting to know about, but not something to really practice. Print area. Well, I'll give it a check mark. This is pretty cool, the print area. What it allows you to do is you might have a spreadsheet with a lot of information, and you can select a certain portion and only print that certain portion. So it's somewhat useful occasionally. It's not critical. Breaks, it's more advanced. It's useful to know about breaks, like page breaks, right? Or I'll tell you what, let me put 2 checks there. This is something they're going to have us practice, as is print area. They're going to have us practice both of those, breaks and print area. So you'll see how to do them. Background, oh, I'm just going to give that an X. Put a picture behind the cell locations? No. You spend time doing that, your boss is going to walk you to the front door with a banker's box full of your personal belongings. I'm exaggerating, right? No, putting pictures behind the spreadsheet data has very limited value in very limited situations. It's good to know about, I think, but it's not something you should practice. It deserves an X. How about print titles? Again, that's another thing they're going to have us practice, and it's more advanced. So the things I put there with 2 checks, they're slightly more advanced. They are things you're going to practice, and I do think they're useful. The things I put with indicated with X's, you could never know about them, and you'll live a happy and successful life using Excel. And then the things with stars, you can't live without. But the way that the author presents the information as if everything's equal. Everything's equally important. No, I'm sorry, everything's not equally important. And if you treat your life that way, like everything's equally important, you're not going to be focusing on the things that make a difference or the ways in which you can make a difference. Okay. Let me keep scrolling. Headers and footers. Okay, so I'm just scrolling to the bottom of this section. Scored is, so when you get to the end of the step-by-step project, there's the key takeaways, of course, and they show you an image. They show you an image in print preview of how yours should look. I'm just going to point out a couple of things that students get wrong. Notice, first of all, that it's landscape. I don't know if you can read that. I think it says landscape orientation. There's a header on the top left, top center. You can't see it here in this view, but there also is a bottom right footer. And then this thing is perfectly centered on the page from left to right, top to bottom. Okay, so those are things that sometimes students miss. After that project, the chapter practice starts, and it's a totally separate project called Basic Monthly Budget for a Medical Office. And if we have time later in the course, we'll do that one. But next week, in week 4, you're going to be doing this chapter, that step-by-step project, chapter 2, mathematical computations. So we won't be doing the scored assessment or the chapter practice. By the way, notice that those two projects, this chapter practice has one image, two images, and then the scored assessment, 0 images. The idea is they remove instruction progressively as you gain knowledge. And that is the way that people learn. At first, you explain everything to them in a detailed way. Then day 2, you abbreviate a little bit. Day 3, you give them more independence to see what they remember. Okay. All right. I think that is a pretty good introduction. I probably went pretty long with this recording, possibly an hour and a half. But if you understand the way I presented this information in this recording, I think it will help you to save time as you go through the rest of the book. So good luck to you, and thank you for your attention.